Hi everybody, this is Laura, City Scrapper. Thank you so much for joining me on my channel today. Today I have a layout that I made using the November My Creative Scrapbook limited edition kit. This month we got this absolutely adorable Prima collection called Candy Cane Lane. It was designed by Frank Garcia, and I really love all the pinks and the light blues in this collection together with those traditional reds and greens. I'm using this month's stencil, and I'm using a sponge and a little bit of gesso, and I'm dabbing the gesso through the sponge just to create a little halo of snowflakes in the background. It's not something that makes a huge difference on the layout, but I do really like that little touch. I'm using one of the My Creative Scrapbook cut files. It says I Believe, and I backed it with the papers and some of the pocket cards that were included in this month's kit. I have a photo of my daughters, my nieces, and my nephew from Christmas Eve a couple of years ago. I backed it on some white cardstock, and then I have some red cardstock behind that. I put some fun foam on the back, and then I attached that down to the right-hand side of that cute little girl that I absolutely love. I love that image in this month's kit. I did some stitching on the cut file, and I want to make sure that when I place it down on the layout that it is straight. So I'm using my T-square and trying to position it straight and in the center of the pattern paper. I used a chipboard peppermint on the dot for the eye, and I also use a piece of white felt on the bottom part and the pom-pom of the Santa hat. I'm using this chipboard reindeer. Looks like Rudolph. He has a red nose. I'm putting that right above the letter I. And now I'm using some of the flowers that I love that are included in each month's limited edition kit, and I'm putting those below the photo. I decided to move the cut file up a little bit just to give a little bit more room for the photograph. And now I'm putting some adhesive on the back of some both chipboard and paper ornaments, and those are going to go underneath the cut file, and I work on those a little bit more later on. There was a whole sheet of these beautiful pink and red poinsettias that we got in the kit this month, and I decided to fussy cut all of them out, and I'm really glad I did because I used these on most of my layouts. I absolutely love these poinsettias, and I'm going to use quite a few of them on this layout. I used a dauber and I inked the edges of all the poinsettias. I used Distress ink in Vintage Photo for the pink poinsettias and Distress Oxide in Candied Apple for the red poinsettias. From that same piece of pattern paper, I fussy cut out all of the ornaments, and I'm inking the edges of those as well. I used the Vintage Photo for the blue ornaments and the Candied Apple for the red ornaments. So now I'm going to add some photo corners to the layout. I'm using this little scrap of pink pattern paper from the kit, and I'm using my EK Success Scalloped Photo Corner Punch. If you've been with me for a while, you might know that that's one of my favorite punches in my collection. I love to add photo corners. I inked the edges of those using the Vintage Photo Distress ink, and now I'm using my ATG adhesive, and I'm attaching them down to the four corners of the layout. To the right of the photo is the sentiment ho 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 printed on the pattern paper, and then I found an ephemera piece that said the same thing and fit right on top, and I thought that it would look nice to make that dimensional. I first adhered some thick white cardstock to the back of the ephemera piece because I knew I was going to be popping it up and I wanted to be a little bit more sturdy. So I fussy cut out the thick white cardstock, and then I put some foam on the back to pop it up, and I like the way, like I said, that would make it look a little bit more dimensional. One thing that I loved about this collection that I thought was very unique was that there are little sparkles printed in white on a lot of different areas on the pattern paper, and I just love those little sparkles. You can see them on the fussy cut poinsettias on the left-hand side. You'd also see some sparkle on the skirt of the dress of the little girl on the left of the photo. I just really love that little element. I think that it adds a lot to the layouts. I have a couple of chipboard ornaments underneath the cut file. I wanted to add some more ornaments, and I'm using the ones that I fussy cut out from that paper I fussy cut out the poinsettias from. And because the chipboard ornaments have some dimension to them, I also wanted the paper ornaments to have dimension, so I'm popping those up on some foam. Once I had the ornaments arranged, I started adding some of those poinsettias to the layout. I add them in a few places, but I mainly put them over the cut file. I don't think that I intended to add as many as I ended up adding, but I just kept adding them and I liked the way that they looked, so I kept going with it. I mainly put the big pink poinsettias close to the cut file and then add the red smaller poinsettias above that, but I do mix the poinsettias together. And then I was thinking that because I'm adding so many of the fussy cut poinsettias on the top of the layout, I should bring some down to the bottom of the layout. So I decided to use the fussy cut poinsettias under the photo as well. And I have a big pink one in the center and then two smaller red ones on either side. There are a lot of poinsettias and roses printed on the pattern paper at the top of the layout, and I like the way all of the poinsettias and the roses and the other embellishments all just kind of join together and look like a big unit at the top of the page. I'm going to pop up that pink poinsettia. So just like I popped up the sentiment ho 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 and I backed it with some thick white cardstock, I did the same thing to the pink poinsettia. And because that flower is resting on the photo on the top of the flower, I just put a little bit of the fun foam on the bottom of it. I'm not going to pop up the red flowers, so I just use some adhesive and attach those down. I tuck them underneath the pink poinsettia and then also underneath the photo as well. Then I started attaching some of the embellishments down to the page. I added some adhesive to the back of the ornaments, and then I started attaching down those poinsettias that I had placed at the top of the layout, just adding a little bit of ATG adhesive to them. Even though I think I have everything where I want it, when I'm attaching things down, I do tend to continually make little adjustments and move things around. I wanted the poinsettias to pop up just a little bit, so I'm not popping the entire fussy cut piece up. I am just adding a little bit of foam to the tops of some of them or underneath the tops of some of them just to give them a tiny bit of dimension. I added a chipboard candy cane to the ho 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 sentiment, and then I started adding some of the dimensional flowers. I'm just going to add these small blue flowers. I thought that the blue color was a nice way to break up all of that pink and red, and I just love dimensional flowers, so I wanted to include some on the layout. Now I'm attaching some sentiments down to the red skirt of the little girl. One says, "Merry Christmas to you," and the other one says, "And a Merry Ho 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 to you." I liked the addition of the blue flowers, but I really was thinking that this layout could use some more green, and I love to add branches and florals to my layout, so I thought that these pine branches would be perfect to tuck around all of these flowers. I used a number of pine branch dies in my stash and some thick white cardstock, and I cut out a whole bunch of pine branches. I embossed them with some Moxy metallic evergreen embossing powder, and I usually put 2 coats of embossing powder on whatever die cuts I am embossing. I just like the way that looks. It gives the embossed pieces a little bit of dimension. I love dimension. So I made a whole stack of them, and now I'm tucking them into the flowers on the top of the layout, behind the cut file, and wherever I thought a little touch of green and a pine branch would look nice. Depending on the size of the die cut piece and the place that I wanted to put it on the layout, I either used the branches as a whole or I cut them down into smaller pieces. The thing I love about pine branch dies is that if you taper the top with your scissors, you could use pieces that you cut off of larger pieces and use those as pine branches as well. So I am using my scissors in some cases to get those little tiny pieces tucked into place, and I was thinking that the smaller pieces would look nice around the ornaments, so that's what I'm doing now. I'm cutting down those little pieces that I had trimmed off of other die cut pieces, and I'm using my scissors and I'm getting them into place around the ornaments. I love to add bling to my layouts. I started off with some red pearls. I added a couple of very, very small pearls to the ho 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 sentiment, also to a peppermint near the sentiments on the left hand side, and I gave Rudolph a big red shiny pearl nose. Next, I started adding some very small sparkly jewels to a number of places on the layout. I have them in two different sizes. I've had these in my stash for a long time. They are perfect for just adding a little bit of sparkle, but they don't add an additional color to the layout. So I thought that these would be great to go along with all of those sparkles that are printed on the pattern paper. I don't include all of the footage of me adding those sparkles, but you can see that I added them all around just as little accents. Now I'm using some heavy gel medium and a really old paintbrush, and I'm attaching down some little pearl bows that I had in my stash. I got these from an assortment pack of embellishments from Amazon, and I thought that they were just the right size and just the right embellishment to go on top of those ornaments. I'm also adding some of the heavy gel medium to the ends of each of the blue flower petals, and then I'm sprinkling a little bit of diamond dust on each of the flowers. This isn't really the correct way to do this. It's probably a lot easier to add the gel medium and the diamond dust before you attach the flowers down to the layout, but I decided afterwards that I wanted to do that, and it ended up working out just fine. I added a white pearl to the end of Santa's cap, and then I decided I wanted to add even more bling, so I added a whole bunch more of those little white gems that I added earlier, and now I am using some gel glue and I'm attaching down those pine branches. You can see that I added two small pine branches, one on either side of the large pink poinsettia, and I went around the layout and I glued down the pine branches and anything else that wasn't attached. And that completes this layout. And here are some close-ups. Thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to watch this video. I really hope that you enjoyed it. Please take a look in the description box. There is a link to the My Creative Scrapbook website. This is the limited edition kit. This kit is available, and there are also 3 other beautiful kits for all different types of scrapbookers, and I hope that you will check out the website. Have a fantastic day, everybody, and I hope to see you again soon. Take care. Bye-bye.